Welcome back to the Home Path Podcast. This is Raphael, and today we're going to talk about how to go from your starter home to a dream home. And I think the misconception is that people always want, especially first-time home buyers. Oh my goodness! A lot of times, they have a job that can get them into just the bare minimum, just enough to get them into purchase a home, and they want the 3,000 square foot house with the 5 acres. And depending on where you live in California, that's just not possible. You can definitely work your way up there, but a lot of times you have to be realistic of where you're starting and know that your starter home is not going to be your dream home. It rarely is. And it was certainly, for me, when I bought my first home, it wasn't in an area that I wanted to. I went kicking and screaming, but I did it. I lived in that area for 7 years, and then I was able to sell my home and generate a little over 100,000 after just living in it for 7 years, which is not bad because a lot of times you've probably been renting for 7 years, and you can't leave that place and say you're going to walk away with $100,000 check. So a lot of times you're going to rent anyway. Might as well just find a place that you can buy with a payment that you're comfortable enough. Maybe not in an area that you like, but guess what? A couple of years later, maybe a decade later, you'll be able to look back and walk away with something. So the first thing you have to come to terms with is that your first home, especially if you're a first-time home buyer, it may not be your forever home. Where, back in the day, the American dream was to buy a starter home, and that was going to be your home. That was going to be, for the next 10 generations. And a lot of times you can get there. It's just that, where you start. So I've seen this happen is that someone will probably buy a home, not in the area that they want or the size that they want. They'll gain some equity by, time will go by. They'll refinance and or pay down their balance. And then they use that equity and then roll it up to a nicer home, a bigger home in a nicer neighborhood. And then, once time passes, they'll gain some more equity, pay down the balance, and then be able to move to a nicer area. I've seen this happen with someone for about, this is probably their fourth home, and they live in a nice area. They still have hundreds of thousands of dollars in equity, and they technically could roll that money over and just go buy their dream home. So just know that patience and time is what's going to get you there a little bit faster into your dream home, especially if you do not make the income that you want. Now, the example that I just gave you was an individual who has been at the same job, same career path that they've taken, and not, a lot has changed, like a drastic amount of money. Like they were making $100,000 a year. Now they're making $750,000 a year. What changed is that because they chose to buy early and pay down their balance and, refinance or do whatever they needed to do, over time, they were able to gain equity over multiple properties and just keep rolling it over to the next one. And what happens is that because you're putting such big chunks of down payment with the equity that you have, you're still keeping your payment pretty low because you're not tapping into that actual cash. What you're doing is that you're just keeping down the balance as low as possible so your payment stays about the same. It's kind of cool. So think about it this way. You move into a bigger house that costs more money, but because the equity went up on the previous property, you have a big chunk of down payment to say, hey, I could move into a nicer home for about the same price because I'm bringing all of this equity over and my mortgage will be, if not around the same. So it's not very easy to pull off because you have to kind of build it up over time. And equity and paying down the balance takes time. The sooner you do it, the sooner you can get yourself into a position where you have options. If you're renting right now, you don't have options. The only options you have is your rent's going to go up, guaranteed, every single year. And if you don't like it, then you're going to have to find somewhere else to live. The beauty about locking yourself into a 30-year mortgage is that it's going to stay the same. Now, there's a big misconception about locking yourself into a 30-year mortgage. People think that they're going to stick around with a mortgage for the next 30 years, which seems daunting, but a lot of times you can walk away from it. You can refinance to a lower rate when time permits. You can sell the home You're not stuck there forever. It just means that they've stretched out that balance over the next 30 years for to show that you can make that payment. And oftentimes, most of the times, you may outgrow that home because maybe you get married, you start building a family, you want to move to a different area. Maybe you got a different job, and a lot of times you just have to move around, which is okay. It just means that you're not going to be able to just move it into your starter home, and that's going to be your forever home. It would be nice, but majority of the time, I would tell you it doesn't happen that way. Some people are in a position where they can buy their starter home. Seems like it's their forever home because they decided to go inland to maybe like a new build or something like that. And a lot of times those individuals do get to kind of have their cake and eat it too, but they had to move to a different area that they could afford to be able to buy a newer home. So everybody is different. Some people want to stay in the same area for the school board, the family, whatever reasons that they may have, the weather, and they just want to buy something in that area versus moving inland. And inland is just going to keep growing and growing, and the weather changes when you go inland. So it just depends on what you desire, but just know that moving into your dream home is possible with a little bit of patience, a little bit of action. The more you speculate, and which you're never going to get the timing right, but the more you speculate when is the perfect time to buy, if you just keep waiting, 5 years, if you've already waited like 5 years, you've already missed the boat because prices have gone up, and, the cost of buying has gone up. Everything costs more, from credit reports to appraisals to, just taxes on a property that costs more. Overall, you're going to be paying property taxes on a home that, it's already $100,000 more. So overall, everything just costs more money. And it doesn't get any easier. It just means that you have to generate more income. So with that being said, just if you're starting to buy a home, just be open to the possibility that it's not going to be your dream or forever home, but know that you can work your way up there if you're very strategic. If you're saying, okay, we're going to live in this area for the next 5 years, and then I'm going to maybe change career paths or do something else. And then in the next 5 years, we're going to be able to buy in the area that we want to live. And it's very possible. Anything is possible for you. The only thing you have to do is take action. The worst thing you can do is be inactive and live in scarcity. And that's what holds people from actually making these kind of moves to saying, can you buy your dream home? And the answer is you can. But the biggest question that you have to ask is, who do you have to become in order to achieve that? So if you can't buy your dream home right now, that's okay, but you have to sit down or look in the mirror and ask yourself, who do you have to become in order to achieve that? Because it's not what you have to do. The what will always appear, but the version of yourself that you have to change, whether it's change some habits. Maybe you're out at the bars drinking too much, having wings and beer. Been there, done that. Maybe you're out, just spending way too much money on eating out. Maybe there's some, lifestyle changes that you have to make. Maybe you have to get up earlier to get things done. A lot of things will change when you start asking yourself, who do you have to become in order to get to that dream home? And boy, has that question, over the last year, has changed me a lot. One of the biggest changes is that, for the most part, I get up at 4 a.m. and whether it's reading the Bible or writing copy or working on something that's going to progressively move me forward. And a lot of times it's just asking yourself, who do you have to become in order to achieve that? And once you get serious about that question, things will start to appear, and you can start heading in that direction and saying, hey, I will buy my first home. It won't be my forever home, but I will keep chipping away at the version of the person that I need to become in order to get there, because I know it's possible. But the worst thing you can do is not ask yourself that question and stick around with inaction. So meaning you're thinking about it, and the years will go by, because they always do. And then you're just going to be back at square one, always wishing that you just would have taken action and gotten started. So don't do that. Start with asking yourself, who do you have to become? And whatever comes to mind, sit there and meditate, figure it out. And that's usually going to be your first step to figuring out how to get yourself into your dream home. Well, that's all I got for you. Hope that was helpful, and I'll see you on the next episode.